In this lesson, we're going to explore a little bit about OpenStreetMap, known as OSM. So what I've done is I've opened OpenStreetMap. I have logged myself in, and we are looking at an area around Louisville, Kentucky, and southern Indiana. So on the right-hand side here, we have some tool elements. The first two are just zoom in and zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. I tend to use my scroll wheel on my mouse instead, so you can see it will do the same type of thing as if I zoom in or zoom out. This map that we're looking at is a vector cached map. So it's a vector, it's a bunch of straight line segments, or straight line segments that enclose an area that we can then fill in with a color, but it's cached so that it will load faster, so we don't have to do the interpretation of loading each vector. It is a cached map. When changes are made to the map, then we will have to go in there and wait for it to rebuild those tiles. They won't rebuild immediately if I add some new information into my map. I can also pan with my mouse as well. The next tool is Show My Location. Since I'm working on a desktop computer that has no GPS connected with it, then this tool doesn't really do much for me. If I was out in the field using a GPS connected to my computer, then that would be a different story. But right now, this doesn't do much for me. The next is a Layers button. And it's not the layers the way that we normally think of layers, where we have a layer that might be a point file showing cities and another layer that's a river file. But instead, these are different layers of different features being visible. So we've got several different ones here, including a cycling map, and the colors are different. I'll just choose the cycling map here just to show you there is a difference in the appearance from the standard to the cycling map. And for some reason, it's taking a while for it to load. I'll go back to the standard just for the sake of argument. To close that, I can just click on the icon again. We have information. It's basically like a legend. So here is our information, our legend for our map. Again, I can close it the same way. We can share a piece of the map to others, or we can share this view to others. So if you notice up here on my left-hand side, it gives me some information like my latitude and my longitude, and I'm at a zoom level of 12. We can also add map notes. We won't worry about that right now. We can get additional information. So these are the buttons on the right hand side. On the left hand side, we have an edit tool, a history tool, and an export. If I go to the edit tool, next to the edit tool, I will find a pull down, which is not pulling down right now. Let's try zooming in just a little bit and see if that will work. There we go. And we have two different editor boxes here. One is the ID editor, in-browser editor. That's the one we're going to use. The second set of editors will require the loading of JOSM, and we're not going to do that. And it's going to also work remotely away from this canvas that we're on right now. So we're going to use this editor, and that is also the default here. So what I'm going to do first, though, is to do a little exploration. So I'm just going to click to get out of there. And I am going to zoom in a little bit. And as I zoom in, you can see more details showing, just like you would expect to see on something like a Google map or any other map that you have. So you can see more details. This park is showing up. A trail in the park is showing up. And you can start to get a feel for some of the things here. These roads all have width to them, but if we go to the edit mode, we'll find that these are actually vector straight line segments, and you can see that. And notice on any vector segment, if I click on this one, there are little dots within it, and those are basically the end of straight line segments. So for example, this one right here, let's take from this point here where it makes a right angle, we go up, we can see that here is the end of that first vector segment in the beginning of the next, and then we can see another one here, and so on and so forth. And we can move these vector segments. For example, if a road doesn't look like it's laying right, the person who drew it didn't put it quite where it needed to be, we can make a modification to these vector segments just by clicking and dragging. I find a lot of times people who draw cul-de-sacs, and let's see if I can find one here for you. Okay, so here's a cul-de-sac. Notice the person who drew it only drew it with a few straight line segments. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this dot's really badly positioned. It's 6 segments. The person who drew the sidewalks used a lot more segments, and by using more segments, it's a much smoother arc, and so you can see the difference there. And you could go in here and you could click on this piece of this segment, as you can see, and we can actually let's zoom in a little bit so we can do this better, because I'm actually doing a real data motion. And let's move that one over there, and if I want to move this segment, let's click again, grab that segment, move it there, and there we've made it a little bit better. We could also add more segments in here if we wanted to even smooth it out better. So you can start to see how you can make modifications. So that's an edit. Notice it has recognized I've done an edit because it has now one item that needs to be saved. I can also use the undo button. Notice in the middle of my edit screen I have points, lines, and areas. So if I'm creating something new, I have to choose what it's going to be before I actually put it onto the map. So let's zoom out again. And let's move over into this area here. And now let's zoom in a little bit. You can see the sidewalk has been drawn on this side of the road, and it ends right here and a crosswalk up there, but it's not been drawn on the other side of the road. So if I want to draw that sidewalk, I'm going to go to the line feature so that it knows I'm doing a line. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want to make this as accurate as possible. If I need to drag, I click and hold. So let's see, we want to go from there, maybe to a segment like that, like that. I make the straight line pieces longer when they don't have any changes. I make them shorter when they do have changes. I'm going to go up here, and obviously we're going around this curve, but there's also a break in the sidewalk right there, so I'm going to go there, and I'm going to double click to finish that segment. I'm going to tell it it's a sidewalk, and it asks me some attributes about this sidewalk or metadata. It doesn't have a name. What's the surface? If I use the pull down, it is concrete. And that's about all I can give to that. But if I click on this endpoint, I can say this is a lowered curve, and I'm going to drag over a little bit. Notice there's another sidewalk here, and so I'm going to draw a line segment from the endpoint here, and I'm sort of snapping to that point over to this other break, and then I'll put one more piece in to couple to this existing sidewalk. Double click on it. I'm going to tell it it's a sidewalk, and it's also made out of concrete. And I've selected that. I'm going to come back to this end point, or near this end point, that dot there, tell it is a lowered curve. It wants to know if it's wheelchair accessible. I didn't do this on the other one. I can go back and edit. I will do that. And yes, it is. I happen to live in this area, so I know it is. And that one is also wheelchair accessible. And then I'm going to click in. I'm going to go to a point. I'm going to click here. And I'm going to say this is an unmarked crossing. But if I look at the road, I don't see a crosswalk symbol there. And now I have added that item. I'm going to go back to my line feature, and I'm going to click on the end point, or not the end point, the next to the end point, and I'm going to continue making this sidewalk going around. There's a little bit of a curve here, so I'm not making extremely long line segments. I'm going to go to right there, because there's a break there. I can see the red in the aerial photograph. I'm going to again tell it it's a sidewalk, and this sidewalk is concrete. I'm going to go to this end point and click on it and tell it that it is a lowered curve. And I can now go on and put this piece in. We'll do that, and that'll be the last piece I'll put in. I'll put there. There, and double click there. And since this is a line, I'm going to highlight it. It tells me it knows it's a line, but I haven't given any features, so we need to give it a feature. And we want to call it a sidewalk, so we've done that. I want to come to this end and tell it it has a lowered curb. I'm going to go to, and I assume it's wheelchair accessible, and I'm pretty sure it is. And I'm going to go to this, and it's a lowered curve, and also say yes, it's wheelchair accessible. Then I'm going to come back here and do one other thing. I'm going to grab that end and grab that end, double click. That's a sidewalk. So I've told it that. I'm going to tell it it's concrete. Accept that. And the last thing I'm going to do is come in here somewhere around the middle of this crosswalk. First I got to click on point, go around the middle of this crosswalk, click on it, and say this is an unmarked crossing. And now I have completed this piece of it. I have obviously more sidewalk I should do down here, and I will do that later. But now I have 14 different little segments that I've done. I'm going to click save. Notice my menu comes up here. It wants a brief description, and I'm going to just say added sidewalks. And fields, I'm going to come in here, source. It wants to know the source. I'm going to use the pull down, and I'm going to say local knowledge. And I'm going to come over here and click upload. And now my changes are permanent. Just to show you how the area tool works, and I'm going to click on the area tool. I'm going to come over to this business. I'm not going to keep this one. I'm going to click on the corners of the building. Double click on the last one. You can see I've created a polygon. It wants to know what this building is. Well, it is a beauty salon. So I'm going to click beauty shop. And then it wants to know information like what is the name of it, who's the operator, what's the address, all these type of things. And I don't have that information right in front of me. So that's one of the reasons I'm not going to complete this. But you can see I have made a building, a polygon. We can do this for parks and other items. And while it's flashing, I can just press the delete key on my keyboard and it will disappear. Likewise, if I wanted to label this and not do a polygon and just label it as a point, I can click on it, tell it it's a beauty shop, and again it asks me the same type of questions, but instead of being a polygon of the building shape, it's just going to put a point file on that. And I can show you some of that in this general area. So let's delete that, and then we're going to come back over and zoom out a little bit. And notice here, this is a polygon building, but the structure where the gas pumps are is just a point file. And if I click on it, it brings up this information. Whoever completed this one did not give any real information about it, not even the brand name. So I happen to know this is a Shell station. So I'm going to put Shell, and the name of the station is Circle K. I happen to know those items, so I can make those changes to this file and then save it. And again, I have the same thing, added name, source field, sources, and again, local knowledge, and upload it. And now that will become permanent. With that point, it'll say Circle K. There is no need at the end to do some type of a compiling or publishing of everything. Once you decide to do save, it asks you the questions on the left side, and you will be able to make that a permanent file. That will be the publishing. So I'm suggesting that you go out and find an area that you know information of and start adding additional value-added information.